Most people live with a quiet assumption: I know who I am. They know their name, their age, their profession. They know what they like and dislike. They know how others see them. And yet, if we slow down and listen carefully, something subtle appears. A feeling of inner division, contradictory desires, moments when we surprise ourselves by what we feel, by what we do, by what emerges from within. Carl Jung believed this confusion was not a personal failure, it was structural. We are taught to identify with a small, visible, known part of ourselves and mistake it for the whole. This episode explores the most fundamental distinction in Jung's psychology, the difference between the ego and the self. Without this distinction, inner work remains shallow. With it, everything changes. Section 1. What the ego actually is and is not. In everyday language, the ego is often spoken of negatively. We say someone has a big ego. We associate ego with arrogance, pride, selfishness. Jung used the word very differently. For Jung, the ego is simply the center of consciousness. It is the part of you that experiences, I am thinking, I am feeling, I am here now. The ego organizes consciousness. It gives continuity to experience. It allows memory, planning, and decision-making. Without the ego, there is no stable sense of self in the world, so the ego is not a problem. The problem begins when the ego believes I am all that exists. Section 2. How the ego is formed through adaptation. The ego does not emerge in isolation. It is shaped through relationship. From early childhood, we learn what is rewarded and what is discouraged. We learn which emotions are acceptable, which behaviors bring approval, which traits lead to belonging. Slowly, unconsciously, the ego forms as an adaptation strategy. It asks, how do I fit in? How do I remain loved? How do I avoid rejection? This is not manipulation, it is survival, but every adaptation has a cost. The parts of us that do not fit the emerging ego image are pushed aside. They do not disappear, they become unconscious. Section 3. The ego's need for control and certainty. The ego thrives on clarity and predictability. It likes labels, stories, explanations. It wants to know who it is, what it wants, where life is going. Ambiguity makes the ego uncomfortable. Inner contradictions feel threatening. So the ego tries to maintain control over feelings, over identity, over life direction. But life does not obey the ego. And when reality moves beyond the ego's understanding, tension appears. This tension often shows up as anxiety, not because something is wrong, but because the ego has reached its limit. Section 4. The ego's first great crisis. At certain moments in life, the ego's strategies stop working. This may happen after achieving long-desired success, during emotional collapse in midlife, after loss, illness, or betrayal. The ego asks, why doesn't this satisfy me anymore? Why do I feel empty? Why am I restless? Jung saw these moments not as failures, but as invitations. The ego has done its job, now something else must enter. Section 5. The self, the greater center beyond the ego, lies the self. The self is not the ego's opposite, it is the larger whole within which the ego exists. The self includes consciousness, unconsciousness, personal history, inherited patterns, unrealized potential. If the ego is the center of awareness, the self is the center of meaning. The ego experiences life moment by moment. The self holds the direction of the life as a whole. Section 6. Why the self speaks indirectly. The self does not speak in words. It speaks through dreams, symbols, emotions, longings, disturbances. This is because the self includes what the ego cannot yet understand. Direct language would be too narrow, so the psyche uses images. This is why Jung insisted that dreams are not random. They are communications, messages attempting to restore balance. Section 7. When the self interrupts the ego. When the ego resists necessary inner change, the self intervenes. This intervention is often experienced as suffering. Depression may arise when a false identity collapses. Anxiety may arise when life demands expansion. Burnout may arise when outer success has replaced inner meaning. The ego experiences this as breakdown. The self experiences it as reorientation. This is why Jung said that many neuroses are not illnesses, but stalled development. Section 8. Symbols of the self across history. Jung noticed something remarkable. Across cultures, religions, and mythologies, symbols of wholeness repeat. Circles, centers, sacred mountains, divine children, mandalas. These are not learned consciously. They arise spontaneously from the psyche when balance is sought. The psyche knows what wholeness looks like, even when the ego does not. Section 9. Ego humility, not ego destruction. Jung never advocated dissolving the ego. That would lead to chaos. Instead, he spoke of relativizing the ego. The ego must learn, I am not the whole. I am part of something larger. This realization brings humility, not humiliation, humility, a grounded sense of participation in a larger order. Section 10. Why this changes everything. When ego is mistaken for the whole self, suffering feels pointless, uncertainty feels dangerous. Inner conflict feels like failure. When the self is recognized, suffering becomes meaningful, uncertainty becomes transitional, inner conflict becomes developmental. You are not broken, you are becoming. Section 11. The necessary next encounter between ego and self lies tension. And where there is tension, something accumulates. Everything the ego does not want to see, everything it has rejected, everything it fears, this is the shadow. In the next episode, we will explore why the shadow forms, how it gains power, and why no individuation is possible without it. Closing, staying with the question. Do not rush to conclusions. Let questions remain open. Notice what resists these ideas. Notice what feels relieving. Notice what feels unsettling. The psyche responds to attention, and this journey has only begun.